الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So, last week we went through um what did we go through? One second. In the chat we saw can you see the whiteboard?
Not currently.
No, I don't see anything right now.
It's odd. It's interesting. How do I do that? So I can see it, but you can't see it. Okay, I'm not sure how to do this, but anyway, I'll just copy it. Sure why I can't see it now. Okay, this is what we had from last week, okay? Review. Following paused, rejoin. Okay. It disappeared again?
Yeah, it just disappeared right now.
Odd. Okay, can you see it now?
Now it's back. Yeah.
Okay. So, we went through this. Did we? We didn't talk about hair of inanimate animals, right? So we spoke blood plus So urine and feces. Okay, this is the Shafi school. However, many Shafis, Ibn Hibban, I believe his student is his student Ibn. I'm pretty sure his student is Abu Sulaim al-Khattabi. Pretty sure he had that opinion. I think many people, Ar-Royani, many Shafi'is, are of the opinion that feces of edible animals and urine of edible animals is pure, right? And that's evinced by a number of proofs. One of them is the fact that, for example, the Prophet ﷺ prescribed camel urine as a medicine for some people who are sick. And again, you could argue that no, the Prophet ﷺ, allowed them to consume najasa because it was a darura, right? And وَالضَّرُورَاتُ تُبِيحُ الْمَحْظُورَاتِ, and duress shall make the haram, i.e. urine, halal. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ did tawaf on a horse, right? And I believe also on a camel. So how on earth then did he go into a masjid with an animal that at any minute could put najasa on the floor? I mean, I wouldn't be very comfortable bringing a goat inside a masjid, would I? Because I don't know what it's going to do. So at any minute it could do something, right? And so there's evidence there, and there's also the Prophet allowing us to pray in sheep pens. So it's very difficult to pray in a sheep pen if if sheep dung is najas, right? So the Hanbali and Maliki school is no, these things are pure, and that's also the Shafi school. Also, the fact that the people need to use manure. People use, horse manure, cow manure. Cow manure is a thing that people use. We use these things, and so it would be very awkward if these things were najas. Similarly, the issue with horns. So, according to the Jumhur, the Shafi'is, the Malikis, and the Hanbalis, yes, horns and tusks of inedible animals or unslaughtered animals are najas, right? Because that is alive. The horn and the tusk is alive in that it grows, and therefore it becomes najas upon the death of the animal. According to the Hanafis, that is not the case, right? So a tusk is pure for the Hanafis, a horn is pure for the Hanafis, regardless of where it comes from, because it's not alive to begin with, right? Just like a turtle shell. And there's a weak hadith in Abu Dawood which mentions the word aj. Aj is used for ivory. Aj also means turtle shell. So a turtle shell, of course, is going to be pure because all sea life is pure. But whereas aj as an ivory is not going to be pure for the Jumhur ulama, but it is pure for the um, Hanafis, right? Whale whale teeth, is that going to be pure?
Yes,
Right? What if it's not slaughtered?
it's still pure.
Still pure, right? So you can get, it's called crimshaw, I believe. What is crimshaw? Crim, yeah, crimshaw or scrimshaw. Is it scrimshaw? Scrimshaw, not crimshaw. Scrimshaw, right? Which is carved or engraved articles made originally by American Willies using usually from baleen. So this is baleen or whale teeth, right? So whale bone, scrimshaw, right? So this is all pure. Um, okay. And then we mentioned the hair of inedible animals. So again, so that's the Shafi school. We said number one is overlooked, a small amount is overlooked, and a lot will also be overlooked if it's difficult to avoid. So imagine, for example, you ride a donkey, okay? Day in and day out, you ride a donkey. How possible is it for you to avoid even a small amount of donkey hair on your clothes? So a donkey is an inedible animal. So therefore, its hair is najas. So when the donkey hair comes onto your clothes, it is najas. But given that you ride a donkey on a daily basis, and it gets onto your clothes on a daily basis, and it would be difficult to avoid even a small, large amount of it, it would be overlooked, right? Now, again, the position of the Jumhur, ulama, majority is no, it's not najas to begin with. Hair is not alive to begin with; it is dead. It is not like a bone. A bone feels something, whereas you could, you know, and it grows, and it has, whereas hair is does grow but it doesn't feel, so it's not alive to begin with, right? So obviously there's some problems in that when you're saying what is alive, right? If I ask you the question, look at a cell and say, well, the meat is not alive because look, that's just plasma and that's just white blood cells and that's just this and that's just that. What part of a cell is alive? The cell wall, is the cell wall alive? Or is it a mitochondria is alive? It's obviously quite a difficult discussion to have. But the Shafis, they say, yeah, hair is alive. But many Shafis, it's a strong position in the Shafi school, and it's the ikhtiyar of many Shafis, is that hair is not alive to begin with, such that it should be labeled najas in any sense of the word. Okay, number 9, liquid drugs, liquid inebriants. Inebriant, right? Inebriates or inebriants? The inebriants, drugs, right? Um, so marijuana tea or something like that, or something like that. It's also going to be najas. Okay, number 10. What else? Hmm, what else is we missing on the list here? Uh, urine, vomit. Ah, free ejaculate, right? Free ejaculate and any what's it called? Um, uh, there's a term for it. I can't remember what it is now, but any kind of mucus from male genitals. There's a term for it. I can't remember what it was now. Right? As opposed to for females, it's not the case. Right? We mentioned with females, you said um, um, we said for a female, it's anything coming from the inside, deep the inside. We mentioned this last week, right? Coming from the insides, right? For of a one, well inside, not from the outside of her private parts or even inside of the area reached by the male private parts during intercourse. We mentioned that. What else? I think that's about it. I think this is like, excuse me. Okay, so it says these things have to be removed. So it says washing all urine or feces is obligatory. Except for urine. Uh,
Sheikh Farid, may I ask a quick question? Is the fact that it's everything except many, does that come from the fact that it's like the origin of like where humans come
yeah,
from, or
that's there's two reasons. Number one is the origin of mankind. It's a human. Number two, and a human is pure. Number two is they say the principle is ما أوجب أعظم الأمرين بخصوصه لا يوجب أدونهما بعمومه. Okay, what's the principle? Is that something by virtue of its specific nature, بخصوصه, by virtue of its specific nature, it calls about a greater matter. Okay, it will not also call for a lesser matter by بعمومه. Okay, but because of the general category it fits under. So, for example, if you do something haram or inappropriate, you are liable for ta'zir, right? You are liable for ta'zir, meaning you could be punished by the court in the way that the judge seems appropriate. That's called ta'zir. Um, if you do a had punishment, which is something which is also a crime, but it has a had punishment, then you don't also get ta'zir, right? So you did something specific, which is a'zam al-amrayn, you did something that's greater. You don't get both punishments. You don't call for two things at the same time, right? Similarly, if you uh, if you commit zina, then you get as somebody who's not been married, then you get banished, you get lashed, and you get banished for a year. But if you are married or have been married, you get executed through lapidation, through being stoned to death. You don't get both. It's not that they lash you, send you away for a year, and stone you to death, right? So something by its specificity, because it's a specific scenario or something, it calls for a greater thing. It doesn't also call for the lesser thing, right? So, um, so we say then that if you, yeah, so we say then that um, that mani is pure and it calls for ghusl, therefore it does not call for wudu, right? It will not make you break wudu. Now, not breaking wudu, what's the practical repercussions of that? Not much, but it is a technical significance. There is a technical significance there. So my apologies. Your question is it najas? And the answer is for one reason. I'm answering something else, which is it does it break your wudu? So that's two different things. So I answer the question, does it break your wudu? I said no, it does not break your wudu. It calls for ghusl, but doesn't call for wudu. And but the first question that you asked was, is it najas? The answer is no, it is not, for two reasons. Number one, because it's asl insan, and number two, because the Prophet ﷺ prayed with many on him. Does that make sense?
yes?
Okay. However, it is disgusting, right? So some things are pure, but they are disgusting, right? Um, okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to see where we're talking about cleaning ourselves, splints, types of filth, go to the bathroom. Where do we talk about going to the bathroom? It's not mentioned here. Did it come before?
Yeah, I think we did it before.
I don't remember. Dry ablution, wiping over hoofs. Relieving oneself, right? So we mentioned here cleaning oneself from urine and feces obligatory. We mentioned the why. We said because you want to pray, or because excuse me, or because it's going to spread. It is best to do so using stones and then water, i.e., something physical, toilet paper, etc., and then water. It is permissible to limit to oneself to just 3 stones to clean the affected area. So those 2 conditions are there, right? We mentioned that before, that you have wiped 3 wipes. So even if it's the same piece of paper, but different sides of the same piece of paper or different sides of the same stone, 3 wipes, and you couldn't remove any more, right? It's not it's not practical. Like I mean, you'd have to use more water or something like that to remove more. If one wishes to limit oneself just to use to one of the two, then it's better to use water, right? So it is not obligatory to use water ever, right? You don't have to do that. When do you have to use water? When the conditions are not fulfilled. So when the filth goes beyond the normal area, etc., or whatever it is. And we mentioned this was an example of the Sharia of umumul balwa, right? So the Sharia shifts from halal to haram for darura, and it also shifts from halal and haram for need, widespread need. So for the individual, asking the individual to use water every single time he goes to the bathroom is not a big deal. Asking the whole of mankind to regularly remove this regular occurring filth in this regular occurring place is, right, becomes wider. Okay, so it's a very important concept, right? Tomorrow, when we talk about interest, can I get an interest loan to buy my first house that I need to live in? Same discussion. It's the same logic. It's that for me as an individual, yes, I could live here in America without buying my house, even if I have to rent my whole life. It's true. But their argument is, oh, this is a consistent system in Sharia, which is, right, المشقة العامة تنزل منزلة الضرورة الخاصة, right? That a widespread difficulty, it's not impossibility, but widespread difficulty shall be treated as if it's a personal duress, right? Is that true or is that not true, right? And the judgment, the analogy is going to be based on this and another scenario and another scenario and another scenario and another scenario, breaking you fast while traveling. On a global level, it's hard to fast while traveling, even though it's not impossible for an individual, right? Same thing. That's a haja, a mashaqqa, a difficulty. It's not darura, but it is a recurrent difficulty. So therefore, it's excused, right? So that logic, they're using the same logic there. That's what they're trying to do, right? Is that right or is that wrong? Wallahu a'lam. So when we're learning fiqh, we're not learning rules. We're learning rules and we're learning systems. Very important, right? So people who do fiqh dalil, what they're doing, they're learning rules and proofs. We're learning 4 things: rules, proofs, systems, and usul al-fiqh, right? That's actual fiqh. 4 things in tandem. Right? Okay. Um, so washing all urine and feces is obligatory, and you have to do that. The exception of urine from a male infant boy who has not eaten food. What does that mean? So number one, male, not female. Number two, infant, meaning less than hawlain, less than 2 lunar years old. Number three, he has not began to eat solids. He may have eaten solids, but he has not begun to eat solids. So, for example, the fact that he did tahniq, the fact that he once ate some banana, that doesn't mean he's now eating solids. Okay? So this baby boy urinates on you, it's on your leg. Do you have to wash those trousers? No, you can just sprinkle water over the whole area of that. That's enough. Right? Squeeze out whatever you can and just sprinkle water on the rest. Okay, ويعفى عن شيء ولا يعفى عن شيء من النجاسات إلا. So in the Shafi'i school, we do not have a concept of filth being overlooked in general, right? For the Hanafis, for example, they say a small amount of filth is looked over, is overlooked in general, period, right? We don't have that. So one tiny, minuscule drop of urine is not overlooked on your clothes when you pray. The prayer is invalid. Can't do that. So it says, "Wala yarfan." So it says, small amounts. So filth is inexcusable except small amounts of blood and pus. In reality, any. So in reality, it depends. Okay, a small amount of blood and pus is always overlooked, right? As long as it's not from a dog or a pig, it's always overlooked. So it's yours or somebody else's or some animals, it's always overlooked. A small amount. Okay. Now a large amount is overlooked if it is yours. If you didn't cause it. If it is not from an open orifice, not from your mouth, it's not from your nose, it's not from your ears, not from your private parts. And if it has not moved, so you stubbed your toe, okay, and then it bled quite a lot, and you have some of that blood on your shoulder, okay, a lot of that blood on the shoulder, no. Why not? Why do you think that's not overlooked?
Because it moved.
Because it moved, okay. Why is that significant?
So it's not in the place of origin.
Okay, why is that significant?
You said a small amount of blood that what?
So you stubbed your toe, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now you have a lot of that blood on your shoulder. Why do you think that's not overlooked?
Because it's not common.
Thank you very much. النادر لا حكم له. Right? So we're looking at haja al-ama. This is a general difficulty. You are a giant bottle of blood, right? You stub your toe, you bleed. You cut yourself, you're shaving, you bleed. You get you bite your tongue, you bleed. You're bleeding all the time. It's a normal thing to do. And so, given that that's the case, a lot of blood is excused. But here, why did it go from your toe to your shoulder? And why is there a lot of blood on your shoulder from your toe? That's not normal. It's not normal. Right? Something that is rare is not overlooked. Where's the example of that, Badr? In your beard.
If like a woman has a beard.
Exactly. النادر لا حكم له. Right? So again, when somebody comes along and says, for example, النادر لا حكم له, we're gonna say you like a particular scenario that applies to you personally might be really difficult, and that's just how it is. Right? But when it becomes widespread and muttarid, like this is normal now, right? This is now normal. Then now it's going to be excused. So, for example, I'm not on the level to answer that question. Splashback from a normal Western bathroom toilet, right? So it is normal. It is not normal in the West. You go to a gas station, you rent a house, you have a home. It is not normal to have an Eastern bathroom that, right? You're usually relieving yourself into water. Okay? Therefore, it is normal to have splashback. And so if somebody came along and said, yeah, it's excused because this is now the normal way of building bathrooms, then yeah, it would make a lot of sense. I'm not going to give that answer. I'm not on the level to give that answer, but you can say it's now muttarid. It's now just normal. right? It should be overlooked, right? As opposed to something that's not overlooked, right? So generally speaking, when we're talking about عموم بلوى, we're talking about that there's ittirad, that it's normal, okay? And that there's no taqsir in it. So taqsir like what? Like so you cut yourself, you got a knife and stabbed yourself in the leg. Why on earth did you do that? So now it's bleeding everywhere. It's like, okay, that's your problem. As opposed to you were stabbed, right? Which is different. Okay, so a small amount of blood and pus, absolutely. A large amount of blood with those conditions that we mentioned. Number two, living things that do not possess flowing blood, right? So a fly dies in is there in your pond in your bottle of water. It's pure, right? It's not a problem. So if they fall into it, so here again the fuqaha have a whole discussion. Okay, what if you threw it into it? What if it became murky? So you have so many flies in your water that it's now murky with dead flies. Say, well, that's not normal. Or you threw it in there. That's your fault, right? So we're going to be looking at those two things. How normal is it? Is there taqsir? Is there that you've done something wrong? The general things that you're going to be working with. Okay, and there's many other things, many other types of filth. So, for example, they mentioned in the past cow muck that gets into milk as when you're milking a cow. So you're milking a cow, the cow has waste, animal waste, its waste on its leg. So it steps into the pail of milk. Just pick out the physical stuff and it's overlooked. It doesn't become najas, right? Because it's difficult to avoid. Um, what else? The animal waste on the floor on the way to the masjid, right? So all transport made najasa in the past, right? Cows, you have a cow that's carrying something, you have a donkey, you have a horse, you have a camel, right? All of these things are walking najasa machines. So the road is full of najasa all the time, just overlooked, right? Just overlooked because it's impossible to avoid, right? Um, what else? Your a baby's mouth, right? A baby is not able to gargle water if it throws up or if it which it does on a regular basis, right? Babies burp and it's like that's normal, but they're gonna bring up milk and that's just normal, right? So the only way to purify it is to get the baby to gargle the water and spit it out. It can't do that. So now the baby is sucking on your clothes. The baby is sucking on something on the woman. The baby is your own. So then they say, for example, what if you kiss the baby on the lips? It's your baby. Yeah, it's excused. Okay, what if you kiss someone else's baby on the lips? It's not normal, is it? That's not normal with balwa anymore. So your own baby that does that's fine. Going around that saliva is everywhere. It doesn't matter. It's overlooked because it's difficult to avoid, right? Um, uh, Alcohol, for example, alcohol. You are a doctor or a nurse. Every single time you go into the room, you're going to clean your hands with alcohol wipes, and you find a little bit on your clothes. It's overlooked, right? Because it's difficult to avoid because you're dealing with the day in day out basis. Um, Somebody who works with gasoline, right? Gasoline has ethanol in it. It's najas, so it's overlooked because it's difficult to avoid, right? As opposed to me, it's not normal when I go foot. It is not a normal thing on a daily basis for me to step on cow manure, is it? Where I live, I don't live in the countryside. Live in a city. It's not normal to see those things. It's not normal, for example, to get gasoline all over my clothes. Doesn't happen, right? So it's not a normal thing. What else? There's many, many, many examples, right? The general thing is anything that's generally difficult to avoid is going to be overlooked. Right?
Sheikh Farid, can I ask a question about the point you made about the blood earlier? Is the when you say small amount, is there like a scale for that? Like I know some fiqh discussions they mentioned the coin.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't have that. That doesn't exist in the Shafi school.
Okay, so when you say like small amount of blood, it's just
Yeah, we don't have. So small amount is orphan. So Imam Shafi used the word ma ta'afuhu an-nas. What people will be like, oh, that's a lot. So the whole issue of like coin is if it's set in stone, like that doesn't exist. And I believe Imam Abu Hanifa himself didn't have those definitions. And so what happened with the Sahibain is that they were dealing with people who had less deen, and they had to put maqadir now. They had to say like it's this. So basically, the Salaf had the discretion, had this deen like taqwa basis, and they had like discretion, and then it kind of like yeah, this is reasonable, this is not reasonable. Whereas people thereafter, and again, I'm not a Hanafi, and I don't know the Hanafi school 100%. But this is what I've heard from the Hanafi school is that the Hanafis they started that Imam the Sahibain had to put certain fixed definitions down like that, like oh it's this amount and this amount because people don't have wara and they don't have taqwa, and they don't have good discretion, so they had to put a fixed limit. Whereas for the Shafi'is, it is what you would deem a lot or what you would deem a little bit.
I see. But then when you said when it comes to one's own blood, then it's that doesn't
Even
exist,
if
right?
you're covered in blood, top. So somebody stabbed you in the head, and the blood is coming everywhere, and you're literally your whole body is dripping in blood. It's fine.
Okay. Jazakumullah khair.
Um, it reminds me of a discussion moving in prayer, right? So you will see the same discussion in every school, moving in prayer. What is considered moving a lot in prayer, right? Maybe you can find out Noor from the Maliki school what it define it as. So what you will see is the early books, they'll say, yeah, you can't move around a lot in prayer. And then as you go through time, there's two things. Number one, more questions asked. Number two, uh, more examples given. Number three, less taqwa. So then what happens is we have to have more and more strictures and more and more definitions. So you're going to find, for example, by the time of reliance of the travel, it will say, I think reliance of travel, I believe it will say that, or maybe later scholars will say, I can't remember now. They'll say things like a three consecutive movements with a major limb. Whereas the early scholars will say al-amal al-kathir, right? Three consecutive movements with a major limb versus moving around a lot. So Ibn Salah, right? He commenting on the Wasit of Imam Ghazali. He says, like, what is the definition of moving around a lot in prayer, right? I'm just giving this example because the issue of what is a lot and a little. So he says there is no definition of moving around a lot in prayer. Okay, it doesn't exist. وَمَنْ طَلَبَ مَا لَمْ يُخْلَقْ تَعِبَ وَلَمْ يُرْزَقْ. Whoever looks for something that doesn't exist, right, will get tired and not find anything. So then, yeah, Ibn Salah, what is the definition of moving around a lot in prayer? He says there's a lot and there's a little. As long as you don't know that it's a lot, then it's a little, right? Like that's basically how it worked it out. Like as long as you don't know that it's a lot, then it's a little, right? Then what's going to happen is bit by bit, someone's going to give an example and someone say, oh, well, he said this, therefore this, therefore this, therefore this, therefore this. And it does naturally become, there's these two opposing systems in any system, right? In any madhab. It becomes clearer and it becomes more Byzantine, becomes more annoying, right? The Maliki school, same thing. Hanbali school, same thing. Hanafi school, same thing. Shafi school, same thing. You're going to find these systems where it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Like, what exactly do you mean? But at the same time, it's going to become like sometimes almost ridiculously accurate, right? Go and ask, for example, about Delk in the Maliki school, like how does Delk work, and when exactly could you use a wall versus using a towel versus using your hand, and which part of your hand, and it's like, oh my God, how did it even get there? Right? And so it's clearer, meaning I, the slave of Allah, can more clearly understand the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and worship Allah with more ease because I know what I have to do. But at the same time, it becomes more technical and very, very specific. Like, oh my God, this is almost impossible to apply. And so we have to have something in between. That's where there's this, the faqih, someone has fiqh nafs, right? They have something that is beyond that, right? Beyond the details. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So that's what you will find. So you'll find level number one, you don't know any fiqh. Level number two, you know a bunch of details. Number three, you understand the deen. Like, okay, I get you. It's like it's a different kind of system, right? It's slightly different. It's not like contrary, but it's different. Okay. Okay, so we did that. And then he says animals. It says, well, so it says all animals are pure for exception of dogs, pigs, and the offspring of both of them or one of them. Exactly the same discussion here. Originally, it said dogs, pigs, or half dogs and half wolves, because that's practical, right? So here I have the talkhis behind me. This is like 4th century Shafi fiqh. It says, you know, a dog is filthy, a pig is filthy, and um, okay. So the early chef is going to say something practical, a dog or a pig or a half wolf, half dog. That is practical, right? The later scholars go, well, hang on a minute. Do you technically mean that? We say, no. Okay, well, what if some other dog, what if some other animal managed to mate with a dog? What if some other animal managed to mate with a pig? It's like, well, that's not going to happen, is it? Right? But so it becomes theoretical, right, as we move through time. Right? And that's useful because sometimes they'll find key things, right? Like, do you technically mean this or do you mean this? And it's useful. Sometimes it's just kind of silly. All animals are pure except for dogs and pigs. Now, Imam Nawawi, he did not agree exactly. um, um, so he didn't agree 100% with the Shafi school on that issue. He said, so the Shafi school, Imam Shafi said, if a pig is not worse than a dog, it's certainly no better. Okay, so Imam Shafi did analogy between a dog and a pig. So the hadith mentions that if a dog licks from a bowl, wash it 7 times, 1 time with earth. What is the analogy? The saliva of the dog to the mouth of the dog. Analogy from the mouth of the dog to the dog itself. Analogy from the dog to the pig, right? And there's no analogy between anything else. Okay? No analogy between a dog and a wolf because they are not labeled, they don't have the same word. It's not the same, right? So it's not. So the pig is. So the analogy from dog to pig is min qiyas awlawi, right? Is by a fortiori analysis, right? A fortiori analogy. Whereas there's the analogy between a dog and a wolf is not a fortiori. It's not by better right. It's musawi, right? It's the same level, right? And this is called a dog in Arabic, and that's called a wolf, and it's not the same thing, right? So there's no analogy there. So a wolf is pure. If a wolf licks you, pure. If a dog licks you, but wash your hands 7 times, 1 time with earth. Right? Every other animal is pure. Right? Every other kind of animal is pure. And so because a dog is filthy, it could not be owned. Okay? It could not be owned. So you cannot own a dog. So if somebody owned a dog, then they don't own a dog. What it means is it's their ikhtisas, right? It's their ikhtisas. Ikhtisas is a concept which is somewhere between ownership and not ownership, right? So what does that mean, ikhtisas? Um, I have some sheep dung. It's mine and it's not yours. Okay, do I own it? No, because it's najasa. You can't own something that's not mal. So sheep dung is not property. Um, okay. Um, sheep dung is not property, so therefore you can't own it. Okay, what does that mean? I can take it from you? No, I can't take it from you. Okay, so what does that mean? That means it's an ikhtisas. It's specifically you have access to it and I don't, right? And what can you do with that sheep dung or that dog or any kind of filth or, for example, alcohol? I made alcohol in order to make vinegar, so therefore it's mine and it's not yours. Okay, do I own that alcohol? No. Why don't you own the alcohol? Because najas. So what can I do with it? So my vinegar, that alcohol that I made to make vinegar, it's called khamr muhtarama, like um, respected or inviolable, sacred, respected alcohol, or my sheep dung or my dog, I can put in my and make a wasiyah, put it as a bequest. I can say my house and my books and my pile of sheep dung and my dog and my wine that I made out of grapes in order to make vinegar are all going to go to so and so, right? So just like wealth could move, right? You could transfer. Similarly, you can have transfer of ikhtisas, right? And this is one of the important things where people have to know the abwab al-fiqh, right? You have to know. I remember one of my teachers is saying, like, so people who study comparative fiqh, what do? They never cover one madhab in the whole picture. So they're going to come along and say a dog is filthy, therefore you couldn't sell it. And we say, yeah, but you could transfer the ownership of it or transfer the access to it. How do you know that? Babul Wasiyah. It mentions it in Wasiyah, in the chapter of bequests. So in the chapter of bequests, you can do that with najasa. Anything that's halal use, you could do that. So in the Shafi school, you can't own a dog, but you could have access to a dog. Meaning, and I could give you access to the dog. I could say, hey, can I pay you to let me have access to your dog? So yeah, sure. Can I pay you to have access to this pile of dung? Yeah, sure. So what's that called? That's not called bay'. That's called rafa' al-yad or naql al-yad. It's called the moving of access. Yad meaning access, right? Or rafa' al-yad, the removal of access. It's now I have access to it and you can't take it away from me, right? Um, and excuse me. So, when you say you can't sell a dog in the Shafi school, what does that mean? Right? So in order to answer that question, can I sell a dog? I need to know this chapter, I know the chapter of sales, and the chapter of wasiyah as well, because it's all one system. But if you don't have a complete system, you don't understand fiqh. So that's why, as the Sheikh Dr. Ramadan Bulti, he said, Allah madhabiyya qantarat Allah diniyya, right? Not studying, not having a madhab, right? We don't have a madhab, is the bridge to no deen. Because if I don't understand the Shafi school, and you don't understand the Maliki school, and he doesn't understand the Hanafi school, and he doesn't understand the Hanafi school, nobody knows anything. Okay. Okay. So otherwise, all other animals are pure. And by default as well, uh, dog-like animals or pig-like animals are also pure. So, for example, a peccary, right? A peccary is a pig-looking or boar-looking animal in South America, right? It is used. Its skin is used like pig skin. It's soft and it's used in the same thing. But peccary skin is going to be pure, whereas dog skin or pig skin is not going to be pure. So you mentioned Imam Nawawi. Imam Nawawi says the analogy that Imam Shafi did, saying, well, a dog, if a pig is not worse than a dog, then it's so no better. It's not a really sound analogy. Right? It's not a very sound analogy. So Imam Nawawi, his ikhtiyar is no, a pig is like any other animal. So pork, you get pork onto a plate, you just wash it once with water and that's it. So that's relevant. It's relevant when you're talking about contamination. Oh, I went to a restaurant and they have pork. So yeah, what, you don't think they wash the plates? Ever? Of course they wash the plates. They wash everything. So it's going to be washed once. It's not a big deal, right? So when you're dealing with pork, it's not a big deal. Okay, dead animals which have not been slaughtered are filth. Okay, with the exception of fish, locusts, and human beings, right? And so, just a quick tangent about slaughtered meat. In order to eat meat, it has to be the default. The default is that this meat is from a place where the default is that they slaughter properly. That's what we're talking about. So where is this meat from? It's from Morocco. In Morocco, how do they normally slaughter? Oh, they do some funny things. Okay, fine. I'm not talking about some funny things. What is the default? Meaning 51% of the time, do they slaughter properly? Yes. And 51% of the time, the people who work in the slaughterhouses, they're Muslims? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking at the default. 51%. We do not need to know that it's halal in order to eat it. You need to know that is the default, right? And so when we say, for example, you can't eat meat that you don't know is halal, you mean you don't know that the default is halal, right? So when, for example, the default is this meat is from anywhere on planet Earth, and the default on planet Earth is that meat is not slaughtered properly, or it's from the United States of America, where the default is they do not slaughter properly, uh, right? Then it's not, you know, it's all based on default. It's not based on yaqeen, right? And so it's a very good idea. I advise everybody who has not listened to my video on halal food to listen to it. There's a lot of fiqh in it. It's very useful, right? I'm quoting Safarini, not Safarini, Isfaraini, quoting Al-Baji, right? Those people who quote the Maliki school and say, "Oh, Al-Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, he said this." You want to quote Qadi Abu Bakr Arabi? I'm quoting Al-Baji. Look at what Baji says about Christian meat and about knowing this, and like if it is known that they do this, then you can't eat it until it's positive proven the other way, right? And so Al-Baji is big. He's not a small scholar in the Maliki school. Um, uh, and so it's useful. There's lots of nuqul, lots of quotes in that are useful. So it's a very useful and ilmi recording.
Farid, just to make sure, you said the qawl of Imam al-Nawawi, he still sees pigs as najas, but just not that you have to wash 7 times.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah. So the question is though, why does he hold that they are najas while alive? That's a problem. So we say a pig is najas while alive, qiyasan ala al-kalb, ajalakum Allah, right? Through analogy to a dog. Okay, how do you know a dog is najas while alive? Well, the Prophet said if a dog licks from a bowl, right? So there we go, right? And so the dog was alive. So, but if Imam Shafi says, Imam Nawawi says there's no analogy, that analogy is wrong, then why is it najas while it's alive? Like, I don't exactly see why that's the case then. Right? So what does that mean? It means in the Shafi school, I get a wet hand, or there's a wet pig and I touch it, my hand is on najas, right? And where's that through analogy to the dog? But Imam Nawawi says there's no analogy from the dog and the pig. So does that mean, in principle, then it should be pure, but it's not. And then the other thing then about pigs is the pig skin, right? So pig skin, according to basically the form of dhahib, is going to be najas. However, you do find other positions. You do find some of the early Malikis, their own positions, not the Maliki school, but some, I believe, Ashhab or Suhunun or someone like that. They say that pig skin is pure. One of those early schools. Similarly, Imam Muhammad, right? So, as far as I know, pig skin is pure enough in order to not have to do qada prayers, right? But weak enough to not be able to follow going forward, right? What does that mean? It means it's a weak position that you could follow, retrospectfully, but you could not follow whatever the opposite of retrospectfully is. What's the opposite? I don't know, going forward, you can't do that. You can't say, yeah, I'm going to follow this. It's too weak to follow. But you could say, okay, in the past, I prayed with this wallet on me. I prayed with this jacket. I prayed with these shoes, right? And so you wouldn't have to do a qada. Okay. Okay, so you want to read, Miko? Okay. Containers in which pigs or dogs or pigs have lapped are washed 7 times. One of the washings must include dirt, meaning earth. So this is American English, dirt, right? Dirt in British English means najasa, means filth, right? So what he means is earth, okay? So I remember once there was a brother in Norway, and he's like, "Oh, in Norway there's so many dogs, and it's very hard to clean it. So should I wanted to start a company that cleans clothes like a Shafi laundrette?" And I was like, "Habibi, it's not that complex, right? The dean does not ask you to do like a Shafi laundrette for people whose clothes are licked by a dog. It's not that big deal." So I remember I used to work in a restaurant, like, or in a cafe, and it would happen like, you when you work there, you see things, and it's like I know that there's pork there on a regular basis. So there will be a point it's like I know I'm washing up these dishes, and I know that I have washing up liquid, washing up water that has touched pork or something that's touched pork. And so like every single day I'd wash my arms from with earth. It's not a big deal. How long does it take to wash it? You wash your arms 3 times or wash your arms 7 times. It's like an extra 3 seconds. If you're prepared, and so we'd have like a cup of earth, it's not a big deal. So a lot of people, the shaitan makes people think that things are impossible when they're not. Or that doing something is really, really difficult, but it's actually not, right? I have to buy a house. Like, you don't have to buy a house. But if I don't buy a house, I'm going to spend this. Yeah, if you do buy a house, you're also going to spend this, this, and this, right? Yeah, but it's neat. It's like a lot of things, like, it's not actually that's such a big deal. I have to shake hands with the opposite sex. Otherwise, this will happen. It's like, really? I don't think it'll happen. It's not actually going to happen. A lot of these things are just uh, it's just a waham. It's just a mohuma, right? These are like mutawahama. Like you just have these imaginary things that are super difficult. Oh my God, that'd be so hard. And it's like not a really big deal. It's not a big deal washing off these things, right? It's like having a shower. Oh my God, you have to put this really weird chemical into your hair, and then it doesn't come out until you stand in the shower for a long time. It's like it's not very complex, is it? It's like it's called having a shower. It's not very hard. There are a lot of things in our heads we make it seem unbelievably difficult. It's not really that difficult. Okay, so a container or anything else in which a dog or pig has lapped, so i.e. any moisture contact with a dog or a pig. So a wet dog, a dog steps on a puppy sits on your lap and it's wet. Pig urine, dog urine, pig feces, dog feces, etc. All these things have to be washed 7 times, 1 time with earth. So what does that mean then? So what you do, practically speaking, you do it with the first wash, right? So I have a dog just lick my hand. I get some earth, put it into my hand, mixed up with some water, and that's number one. And then put my hand at the tap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Done. Easy as pie, right? Now, technically speaking, in the Shafi'i school, then it is haram for you to touch a wet dog because you have spread filth to yourself without a reason. Now, if you're hunting with a dog, that'll be different, right? You need to touch the dog for some reason. That's different. But for no reason, you're walking down the street and you see a beautiful husky. Say, oh my God, what a beautiful husky. Do you want to ask the owner, wow, mashallah, I love your husky. And then the husky's there, like, how long have you had the husky for? And how much does it eat? And what does it do? And is it whatever, etc. And then you're touching the dog. You can touch a dry dog. You can't touch a wet dog though, because you're spreading najasa to your hand for no reason, right? You're rubbing its mouth. Okay, you can't do that in the Shafi school. You want to follow the Malikis? Knock yourself out, right? But in the Shafi school, technically speaking, you can't do that. There's a piglet that you want to rescue, okay? Which, I mean, should you rescue a piglet? Um, I mean, if a piglet is being tortured to death, right? A piglet is drowning, um, or it's dying in a horrible way. Yeah, maybe. But otherwise, like, it's sunnah to kill pigs. So why would you, you know? But imagine anyway, for some reason there's a piglet and you have to touch it or look after it. Like, why are you touching it, right? And so many Muslims they have these issues like, oh, Muslims cannot dissect pigs. Like, well, I mean, why couldn't you? Right? Because in their mind, a pig and dogs are taboo. That's how they look at things. It's taboo. Like, don't go there. Right? So what does that mean? Don't go. That means don't eat the pig. Right? But I mean, if you dissect, if you dissected a dead pig with gloves on, just throw the gloves away and that's it. You don't have to do anything. Right? And there's no hurma, there's no sanctity to the pig. So there's no sanctity to the pig. So it doesn't really matter. It's okay. You can do that. Go ahead, Badr.
Um, just a kind of like a tangent, but if you're dissecting a pig, isn't it because you want to get some type of benefit, like you're learning? Usually they dissect pigs in classes, so wouldn't that be haram?
Why is it haram?
Uh, or is it permissible to get like a benefit from a pig?
Yeah. The issue is, let's say, for example, in an Arab country, the reason why it would be haram is because it's a taboo, meaning it's
Mm,
considered something disgusting. Like you can't say the word pig. Like if I can't say that in Arabic, you say khinzir, you say ajalakum Allah, right? You say the word kelb, ajalakum Allah, because it's like saying it's like saying the F word, right? I'm just here like saying the F word, like astaghfirullah, Sheikh, but like, do you have to use that word? And it's like, oh, you can't say that word, right? You can't say that word. So it's a taboo culture. It's not an issue of actual fiqh,
mm-hmm.
right? And so the reason we're like, oh, I can't do that, right? I remember, working in Jordan, like in this and like you could have in a textbook, you could have a woman without hijab, but you couldn't have a picture of a dog ever. Because the book, if it has a picture of a dog, then you can't sell it in Saudi Arabia. Like what?
Okay.
It's like
So you'd be able to use a pig to sniff things out similar to a dog.
yeah. So
Okay, okay.
the issue with the pig, though, the issue with the pig, then, so if you need was it that useful? Uh, you use a pig for sniffing? Is it?
So I heard some people use it like for finding things, and that they're almost as good as dogs. I don't know.
No, I don't. So, but what I'm talking about is dissecting, right? So it's like
Yeah.
so am I allowed to kill a chicken for a benefit? Yeah, I've killed a chicken for a benefit. I can do what I want with the body. It's fine. I want to eat it. I want to give it to my cats. I want to look at the size of the lungs. I want to look at spleen or whatever. It's fine. What I want. But the issue is making your body filthy for no reason. That's the issue. Like, why did you got blood and you just put it all over your face for no reason, right? You can't do that. No, you can't do that. Other types of filth have to be washed once, but it is sunnah to do it 3 times. Right? Inshallah, we'll stop there. Wasallallahu. And so, and the key point then as well, just one thing is as a strong position in the Shafi school. So we mentioned Imam Nawawi says a pig is like a dog. So don't worry about it. Just wash it once with water. That's it. From pork or whatever. There's a strong position in the Shafi school, very strong position. That the reason when the Prophet said wash it one time with earth, he meant the earth cleans more, meaning it's some form of detergent. So any other form of detergent will be totally fine. So a dog, for example, licks your clothes. You put it in the washing machine, it's totally fine, done. Why? Because there's detergent there, and washed it 7 times, and colors. There we go. Put it on if you want to be careful. Put it on seven cycles. Yeah, it's a bit of waste of water, but you know. Or you live with non-Muslims and they eat pork, right? And they wash the plates. Okay, rinse it 7 times. Oh, they're going to use soap anyway, right? Like how many times has it been washed in the dishwasher? A million times. Right? So, and that is the Hanbali school. So it's a strong position in the Shafi school, and it is the Hanbali school. right? Is that you know uh, that the earth can take the place can so any detergent can take the place of earth. And these are two useful dispensations that should be applied when needed. That you know don't you shouldn't freak out. Oh my God, I became Muslim and that's it. I have to go. I can't live with the Muslim, non-Muslims anymore. Or oh my God, I can't. We're not Jews, right? There's a big difference between Orthodox Judaism and Islam. Big difference. There's a lot of differences. And some of these things is like Al-Hanafiyyah Samha, the easy, doable, workable deen of Islam, as opposed to worshipping Najasa. Many people worship Najasa, right? So that taboo culture is like almost worship, right? It's not Allah, because Allah doesn't say you can't have a dog and use a dog. Allah talks about using dogs in the Quran, right? But it's a cultural thing, like you know, like I think like some Pakistanis they'll say like if you say the word pig, you have to break your wudu or something like that. It's like, what are you talking about? Right? It's almost like that is a taboo culture. Like, oh my God, you said that word. Oh my God, you said this. It has nothing to do with the deen itself. Inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. So remember, kids, don't say the word, the D word or the P word. That was my joke. Okay, so